Hey y'all, welcome back to Poplar Creek Farm. So I want to talk to you guys today because this past weekend we went to our very first juried craft fair, which just means it's a bigger craft fair. They don't allow multiple lots of the same types of vendors. They kind of go through and pick and choose. It's a little bit more of a rigorous application process. Typically you have to send in pictures of your products, description of what you sell, what your setup looks like. It has to be a professional setup, things like that. And so it's a bigger craft fair typically. They oftentimes, because the fees are more expensive, they do a lot more advertising for the craft fair itself, and so the turnouts typically are better. So, craft fair versus farmers markets. You know, I enjoy both. I really enjoyed the craft fair. Profit-wise though, craft fairs are where it's at. So, especially for us right now. Now, that may change in the future, but right now, what we are bringing to the farmers markets is a lot of crafty type items. So obviously when you're going to a farmers market, a lot of people go specifically just for food, which makes sense. It's a farmers market. And that's what I've always gone to farmers markets for. Not that that's all I bought, but that's typically what I'm intending to go there for. Now, so we bring my uncle's woodworking, which that's actually one of the things he's made, which is a wine rack. But also he brings cutting boards, dog dishes, things like that. And then I obviously bring my goat's milk soap. I bring my beeswax lotion bars, my lip balms, my honey, honey lollipops, things like that. In hopefully the very near future, I will be bringing beeswax candles as well. That is one of the goals. So those are craftier items. When I go to farmers markets, I do try to have some produce there, but this year was really rough between still working 3 days a week and the extreme amounts of rain that we got this summer. It was very hard to get into the garden to pick produce and keep it fresh enough for the farmers markets. So that's something that in the future I plan to hopefully work on and kind of be better at. Harvesting the day before if it's gonna rain the morning of, things like that. But I'm still getting there. I also don't have a lot in the way of meat yet. We just do the chickens right now, and a lot of people when I was going to farmers markets were looking for really small chickens, 3 or 4 pounds of meat or 3 or 4 pound chicken versus a 5, 6, 7, 8 pound chicken. Our last batch was quite large. So we had larger chickens, so that's not what people were looking for. So I've done well on my chickens. I've sold quite a few. I actually almost completely sold out of this last batch. I think I have one left, and it's a 7 point something pounder. So that's not surprising that it's left. We'll probably eat that one. In the future, we'll have pork. So I may sell more of that and do better at farmers markets than I've been doing now. But for now, the craft fair was where I was at. So we have kind of changed our idea of kind of how we're gonna move forward and expand the business. So we will still obviously do farmers markets, spring, summer, into the fall. But we will look at more craft fairs for the fall. Fall is when, at least in this area, when most of the craft fairs are. Before the holiday season, people buying holiday decor, holiday gifts, things like that. And so that's just when the craft fairs are. There are craft fairs almost every weekend, and there are some really big ones. They're not necessarily craft fairs specifically, but they have vendors at them and they're big events. And so it's a little late this year to be applying to most of those, especially because most of them are full. But also, I need 4 to 6 weeks to make my soaps for them to set. If I make them today, they still need at least 4 weeks to fully saponify, to fully have that chemical reaction happen. If I did hot process soap, I could make it faster, but that's not what I do. I do cold process, and I like it that way. I like the way my soaps turn out, and I don't really want to change that up at this point. So it is a little late to be doing it, to be making enough in the way of product to have at the markets or at the craft fairs for this year. And again, most of them are full at this point. But I have a running list of ones that I want to apply for next year. So what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks, once the week markets end, and things are a little bit more normal, I will, and the garden's kind of done, we will go ahead and make a list of deadlines of when each of the deadlines is, as well as the fees and everything else that we will need for each craft fair, so that before that deadline, I make sure that I have my application in, so that I'm not kind of behind the 8 ball, which I was on a couple of the craft fairs. There was one that I really wanted to go to, and I was about 2 weeks too late to apply for it. Could I have potentially applied for it? Yes, but they actually ended up not doing it this year. So hopefully things with COVID will have chilled by next year. That's kind of wishful thinking, I feel like, but hopefully things will have chilled and I can go to a lot more craft fairs, because I profited almost what I do in like multiple weeks at farmers markets, at 3 farmers markets. 1 weekend event equaled a few weeks of 3 farmers markets a week. So that's a big difference. And it was nice to have the constant flow. Whereas at farmers markets, a lot of times you're sitting there for an hour, sometimes having really no customers, or maybe 1 or 2 stop and not really buy anything. Where it was a lot more of a constant flow at the craft fair, and I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy conversing and explaining why I do these things, why I make the products I do, why I have bees. So many people asked about the honey, and it was so fun to me. I love explaining the things, all the information about the honey that I can. And so it was more enjoyable in that sense. I got a lot more interaction with people. Again, I love the farmers markets too. I don't want to stop doing them. That's not going to change, but I do want to look more into craft fairs. And that kind of gives me a lot more motivation over the later fall and winter months to really, really, really stockpile my soaps. I needed to get more totes, because I've noticed if there's multiple scents in one tote, even for a night or two, they do start to smell like each other, which really isn't the greatest thing in the sense of like having to bring to markets, having them kind of all smell the same, or have the scents really faded because they've been around stronger scents, so their scent is kind of overpowered. So I need to get more totes and label them and have, this is this scent, this is this scent, and have a lot of inventory going forward, so that when a craft fair comes up and say it's a last minute one, or I find out last minute that yes, you were selected to be in it, I will have the inventory ready and I won't have to worry about cramming and getting it done. And that's what I was doing with this craft fair. I did have a lot of stockpile, fortunately, but we were cramming. I knew the date that I had to make my last batch of soap by, and I was making soap on that day. I did make soap quite a few days before that as well, but I was really cramming at the end, which was 4 weeks before the craft fair, but still. And then I didn't prep labels. That became one of the biggest issues, was actually the labels. We had our Cricut running pretty much continuously for a little over a week, replacing labels, replacing the papers, and doing more and more and more. So that I need to prepare for. What I'm going to do in the future is I make this batch of soap and I start labels for it right away, so that they're done. They won't be able to be labeled for a few weeks, but the labels are there, they're done. As soon as that bar of soap is fully set, I can go ahead and label them. And so there's just things I've learned with doing this that, will help in the future. And I'm very hopeful that this will allow me to do the farming aspect, a little more full-time. Maybe not 100% full-time, but more full-time. Because if I am able to overall replace some of the income and make it so that we're able to pay bills, that's kind of the whole point of this thing. It's huge. So yeah, I'm very excited. I feel very hopeful for the future with craft fairs, and even farmers markets. I've learned so much this year about what to do and what not to do at farmers markets, and now I'm learning what to do and what not to do at craft fairs. I am hopeful that we have one more craft fair this fall. There's one that I had applied for, and I've been back and forth with the organizer. It's just one of those things where a few things didn't go through. I have the emails that I sent, but they didn't receive them. And so we've just kind of been back and forth making sure that they've got everything and that they can decide whether they want us to be a vendor or not. And that's the thing with juried craft fairs. Once you're into one juried craft fair, it's easier to get into others because typically on the application it says, what juried craft fairs have you been to? Well, until you get into one, you've been to none. And so now we kind of have that. We've been into one. We do the farmers markets. And so it allows us to, it opens some doors for us to move forward and expand the business. We also really want to kind of tweak our setup and make it look a little bit different, a little more professional. I feel like our setup looks pretty professional and it is appealing to the eyes, but we just want to make it a little more appealing, change it up a little bit more and see if that helps at all. If it does, great. If it doesn't, well, then we won't do it again. So I'm so excited. I feel really, really great about having done this one craft fair and how well we did at it. So like I said, it gives me a lot of hope for the future and I can't wait for the next one. I'm ready to do another one this weekend. Maybe not. I'm a little tired. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Remember, we're growing today for a better tomorrow. Please like and subscribe and join me on the next one.